And most of them, I'm sure 90% of them, know the actual history of Sister Clara Mohammed School and Sister Clara Mohammed, and that was a part of the PowerPoint. But what I wanted to do today was talk briefly about where we are and where we want to go, where we want to go. But before we get started, I want to see a show of hands of those who are or who were Clara Mohammed School students or University of Islam students. So we have 3. All right, and they're raising their hands proudly, so that's great. What about teachers? Are there any teachers? Okay. Just concerned Muslim. All right. We're glad to have everybody here today. Principals. And principals, I'm sorry. Can't forget the principals. How many principals do we have? All right. And then parents. And even today, grandparents. Quite a few. All right. You all, thank you for coming out. Thank you. What we want to look at today is the Clara Mohammed schools and where we were, where we started off. In the United States, right now, there are literally 34,560 private schools. And in the early 80s, of those private schools, there were a little over 45. And if you know a different number than I do, please correct me, because I don't pretend to know everything. But there were a little over 45 Clara Mohammed schools. Well, today, when we look at all of the full-time schools, we have, some say between 7 and 11 full-time schools. And so when you go back in the 80s and you come all the way up to today, you will see that we had a net loss of Clara Mohammed schools. And so what we want to do, and I'm going to speak on behalf of many of the younger people, is what we want to do is we want to create a situation where our Clara Mohammed schools begin to reopen, but not just reopen. We want to create a situation where our Clara Mohammed schools begin to flourish. So what I want to do here today is not talk your ears off, not talk you to death. I know we have some very well capable, strong-minded people in the room, and there are some people in the room that I want to introduce, especially our principals, especially those who are helping to raise funds for our schools, especially just the people who work on a day-to-day basis to help our schools. Right now, those schools consist of, and I have to start off with my own, the one that I graduated from, Nashville, Tennessee. Those schools consist of Atlanta, Clara Mohammed schools. We have schools in Milwaukee. We have schools in Queens, New York. We have schools in Newark. We have schools in Miami. And am I missing one? Brooklyn, that's right, Masjid Al Khalifa. Say it again. Brooklyn.
No.
Which one? I'm sorry. Malcolm Shabazz. Okay, all right. And that would be Harlem, right?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am. All right. So we have schools still kind of peppered throughout the United States. But the question is now, what is it that we can do? What is it that we can do as believers? And just a few that's in this room, it doesn't take a lot of people. A lot of times we think it take a lot of people, but when you ask the principals in the room, how many did it take to raise the money, they'll tell you we only had a few. How many did it take to send all these children through schools? They'll tell you we only had a few. So it don't take a whole lot of people, it take a few people, right? And so what we want to do is the few people that are in this room, we want to ask you. We want to talk to you and see, what can we do? What do you think we can do? Because a lot of times we look for a leader to tell us to do something, right? A lot of times we look for somebody to tell us, well, you got to do A, B, C, and D. But the fact of the matter is, in certain rights, we all have leadership capabilities. There are certain things that this sister can do that I cannot do. And when it comes to that, she's the leader, right? So what we want to see is, what can you do? What are some of the things that you can do? Now, before we get started, I want to talk to you about a couple of people. And I want to, the principals of the Clara Mohammed schools, can you please stand? If you're a principal of a Clara Mohammed school today, or ever been a principal, please stand. All right. Can I have you all come up if you don't mind? No. And these are special people. They're a special type of people. Please give them a round of applause. We want to talk to them because sometimes they do not get the ability to tell the whole people what they need. There are some things that our principals need to be able to run our schools effectively. So we're going to talk to our principals, and then after that, we're going to talk to our fundraisers. So I'm going to give each one of you the mic, if you don't mind, and if you can introduce yourself and tell me what school you're coming from. We'll start from there.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. My name is Khalila Ziad, and I'm coming from New York City, Manhattan, Clara Mohammed School.
Assalamu alaikum. I'm Portia Siddiq, and I was principal of Clara Mohammed School at Malcolm Shabazz back in the 80s, before she became the principal.
Assalamu alaikum. I'm Sister Mahassan Abdullah, and I'm from Nashville. I'm from Nashville, Tennessee.
Assalamu alaikum, Sister Jean Abdul Rahman from Nur 25. Actually, so said James Shabazz, but it was actually 25. Principal from 1967 to 1977. I'm now presently living in North Carolina.
Assalamu alaikum. I'm Principal Sharifa, Clara Mohammed School, Queens, New York, presently in operation.
So I would like to start it off, and everybody don't have to answer each, because if you hear another principal answer, then you can kind of let that be your answer. But currently, what is the number one concern for the Clara Mohammed schools that you see in your city? Anybody like to answer?
Finance. A number one. All the Clara Mohammed schools need money, but that it goes hand in hand with the question that I asked earlier. In terms of commitment, sacrifice, I know three of us. I don't know the sister from New York or the sister from Tennessee, but I know Sister Shirley and Khalila and myself. We sent our own children to Clara Mohammed School, and we sacrificed in order to do that. I don't see that today. I'm on the board of Clara Mohammed School, Queens right now. I don't see the sacrifice coming from you, and we need that. And if you are the grandparent, then I don't see it coming from your children, all right? Because your children should have their children in the Clara Mohammed School. So how do we get there?
Anybody else have an answer, a different answer?
I don't have a different answer, but I just want to kind of stress the importance of finance. I think the major problem with all of the Clara Mohammed schools, and just like she said, is finances. One of the most important things you want to have in your school is professionalism. It is very, very difficult to have a professional situation if you don't have the finances. You're constantly pinching, you're constantly ramming things together to try to make things work. We want our students to have the best, just like everybody else. So I think it's so important for us to come up with ideas. Brother Imam Hamid is going to introduce some fundraisers. And that, I think, we should listen very closely to that and kind of get behind this particular idea that's going to be introduced. And I think that would be one of the main things that would help our Clara Mohammed schools all over the country.
I just want to say that I also feel that finances are the most important problem or concern that we should have with the Clara Mohammed School. But we have to look at not just the little finances, but it has to be a big finances. You have principals and teachers that have what's the word I'm looking for? Sacrificed their lives 25, 30 years and time to retire and have nothing. That's a sin. That's a sin. We really work hard in the Clara Mohammed schools. And Allah blesses us to give the children, because we don't sit and read newspapers. We really plan and we really work. But then when you turn around and there's nothing there and you get sick and you get old, it's a sin, and we need to do something about that. That means that we can't just think about little finances. We have to think about big finances. Principal Sharifa, how long have you been in the Clara Mohammed School?
Well, I started the Clara Mohammed School in Queens, and it's been in existence about over 28 years. About 28 years or more. But we are talking about finances. Yes, we need finances, and we are told to have faith. And I think there is not enough truth going forward as to what is really existing today in the Clara Mohammed schools. A lot of people probably remember something that happened years ago and wonder, are those things still going on today? And I don't think so. I know Imam left a very, very strong legend as to how the schools were to be ran. And I was fortunate to be invited by him, along with his daughter Layla, Dr. Yasin, Dr. Hamid, and the Imam from Ronald Shahid, Imam Shahid, to a meeting about 3 months before he passed. And he was very, very strong on how the schools were to be ran and how desperately we needed a school system. And the school system, we promised him that we would work on it, and Dr. Yasin, Dr. Hamid, Sister Layla, and myself and others, but those three have traveled extensively. You remember when he sent them out of the country to meet up with philanthropists. Now, yes, you go meet philanthropists and things, but you have to have things in place. Your schools have to be ran legally and federally sound, which means that it must be operating under those guidelines that they put out there. And that is a lot of work within itself. So we have been working on all of that to bring in the legal legalities for the schools to be operating properly so that endowment monies can come through. And they just finished that up and getting ready to launch a campaign. But the attendance in most of our schools, 5, 10, and some may have a little more. But those attendants have to come in. You're telling me, I remember years ago, during the first, from the rostrum, they will tell you what the dangers were of you putting your child in a public school versus the University of Islam. And we have those challenges today, even more so.
That's right.
You don't realize the law that's coming in trying to force you to have homosexuals and all kinds of people going to the bathroom together and doing everything together, and you can't say this or that. Our Quran tells us we can't do that. But you'd rather have your child out there in those type of environments. And I shiver when I go to meetings when the things that they are putting on us, that they will never tell you in a public school that your child won't be able to go to college or anywhere else or get a job. How many of you know that at 3rd grade, if they don't pass a certain test, it is written and sent to federal? How many of you know that at 6th grade, the same things, but at 8th grade, 10th grade, if they cannot pass reading and math, it's sent. So how do you think, or why do you think a teacher can tell a child, you can't go to college or you can't do this? Where are they getting their information from? It's already been sent in. So I called Imam once. I said, Imam, no other school that I know, and please inform me of what I should do. We are being censored by the federal government. And the questions that they put on us, on our school, was unbelievable. I'm like, why? He said, call up all foreign Muslims and everyone else to see if they have been. They said, what are you talking about, sister? Does that happen? Is that such a thing exists? And I said, I'm sitting right in it. They sent out to our school a federal investigator, and they were to take a test. They told me to have a child ready to take the math test and a child ready to take the economic test. I said, what science? You can't do a science because you need a lab and all these equipment and things. So the woman came, and I said, I will take you upstairs with the children. She said, you can't go. I said, well, you can't test our children unless I go upstairs with them and get them in place. We battled for a while, and then she called, and I went up with her. She had the box with the tests in them locked to her wrist. I offered to help her with them up. And we went up. She switched up the ones I had put on the paper as to who was taking the math and who was taking the economics. By Allah's permission, she did us a favor, because the one that I had on there for the other did better with the opposite test. So when they came down, she was all flustered, and asked the children, where is the woman? They said, she's coming down. I said, what happened?